You want big game hunting? I got big game hunting for the Utah Jazz. Next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. Today, we're going big game hunting. Do you trade for Kawhi Leonard of the Los Angeles Clippers? It's not unreasonable. I'll explain. Does Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum answer the bell as big game hunting? Lauri Markkanen does hold some of the cards here, and sneaky money deals have become a large part of this free agency and maybe important to the Utah Jazz as well. That's all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz. As I mentioned, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube. Please subscribe. Thumbs ups are appreciated. If you think the Jazz should trade for Kawhi Leonard, give it a thumbs up. I'll give you the explanation here in a second of how they would do that. Tell me also what you think of Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum in the comment zones on YouTube, or hit me on X at DLock09. Thank you very much for tuning in. And for all of the everydayers out there, you are the best. We greatly appreciate you and all you do for the program and Locked On Podcast Network. All right. Let's make sure we understand something. This is not insane. But I want to know if the Jazz should trade for Kawhi Leonard. Thumbs up on YouTube if you think the Jazz should trade for Kawhi Leonard. Why would the Clippers possibly do it? Because I don't know what the Clippers are doing. The Clippers' explanation, or the explanation that they've given and others have given on Paul George signing to Los Angeles, is that they are avoiding the second apron. That's this new salary cap second apron. We've talked about it all, the impact of the apron. The second apron won't allow a team to trade their first-round pick 7 years. So if you're a second apron by the season's end, you automatically have your 30-32 pick frozen. And if a team remains in the second apron for 2 of 4 season, its first-round pick isn't just frozen, it's moving to the end of the first round 7 years down the road, and you can't do anything with trades and moves. And okay, the second apron's this big deal. Doesn't make sense. They offered Paul George a 3-year contract that would have put them in the second apron. If they weren't trying to avoid if they were trying to avoid the second apron, they wouldn't have signed James Harden to a 2-year, $70 million deal, and they wouldn't have offered Paul George 3 years. The only thing that might make sense here is they promised Kawhi Leonard that he'd be the highest paid player on the team with the best contract, and therefore they couldn't give Paul George more, and Paul George thought that was stupid. Because frankly, if I could sign Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, or James Harden, I think I might sign Paul George. And Paul George's agent might have thought the same thing. So first thing on the Clippers, either one of two things took place. One is they just decided this isn't worth it. This was just a disaster, and it hasn't worked, and we're moving on. Or two, they made a promise to Kawhi Leonard of some sort, and they got boxed, and now they got screwed. Either of those two, right now, if you rank the West, there's 4 teams that are better than everyone else. Oklahoma City, Minnesota, no order, Dallas, and Denver. 4 teams are better. And then you got Memphis. We'll see where they fit. We got Phoenix. We'll see where they fit. But they're right in there. And as long as the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis, they're pretty darn good. Right? So then you have the Pelicans, who just traded for DeJounte Murray. I'm not entirely sure, but they're right in there. Sacramento's still in there. Houston's coming. The Clippers, at best right now, at best, are the 6th best team, maybe 7th best team in the Western Conference. And the minute James Harden misses 20 games or Kawhi Leonard misses 20 games, they're 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th. What are they doing? And they have no trade assets. The craziest thing is that the LA Clippers traded with the Philadelphia 76ers, traded James Harden to the Philadelphia 76ers, or from the Clippers from Philadelphia, so that the 76ers could open up cap space to sign Paul George. And Philadelphia got their draft picks. Right? So the Clippers, between the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander deal and the James Harden deal, their 2025 pick is a pick swap to Oklahoma City. Their 2026 pick is going to Oklahoma City. Their 2027 pick is their own. It's the least favorable of Denver and Oklahoma City. Their 2029 goes to Phoenix. Their 2029 is a pick swap that Philadelphia has the right. And their 2030 is theirs. Like, they have almost no draft assets. They're not good enough to win a title right now. They probably need to start clearing space to go acquire Donovan Mitchell or whoever their next star is going to be. And if you take a second and look at their salaries now, their multi-year salary structure, the only salary they have in the book for the 26-27 season is Kawhi Leonard's $50 million. In 2025-26, they have Kawhi's 50, James Harden's 36, Norman Powell's 20, newly signed Derek Jones is 10. Derek Jones will be on the books for 26-27. And that's it. There is an argument that the right move for the LA Clippers now, signing James Harden probably wasn't it, is to trade Kawhi Leonard before it's too late and reacquire draft assets. That's big game hunting, right? Kawhi Leonard is big game hunting. And what do you need to build a championship team if you're the Utah Jazz? Are we ready for a championship team? Probably not. But if you're building a top championship team, you need a top 10, a top 20, and a top 50 player in the NBA. Well, Kawhi Leonard's about 10 to 15 right now. And when he's playing, he's top 10. And Lauri Markkanen's about 25 to 30 right now. And we don't have a top 50. But if Danny Ainge's comments that you want to go big game hunting and you have Lauri Markkanen, so if you go get the big game, you're close. Well, that's getting close. If you believe Kawhi's got something left. If you believe Kawhi Leonard can play enough games and be healthy in the playoffs and be managed to be healthy in the playoffs. And remember, would Kawhi Leonard come to Utah? Will Hardy was in San Antonio with Kawhi Leonard, working with him as a young assistant when he first came to San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard played 68 games this year. He averaged 24 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists a game. He's 32, but he's still Kawhi Leonard. The Jazz would suddenly have whatever variation of trade pieces you have to trade. But let's say they finish the process with Keontae George, Kawhi Leonard, Lauri Markkanen. Maybe you have to move Taylor, depending on how many picks. And you are now building out of that. It's pretty interesting. I think you probably have to be willing to give up a Taylor Hendricks or one of our young guys and a bunch of our picks. So let's dig into that next. If we're going big game hunting, what would actually be a deal that gets you Kawhi Leonard to the Utah Jazz for 3 years on a $150 million contract, $50 million a year? Could you actually do it? Could the Jazz actually go get Kawhi Leonard in some big game hunting? We look at it next as we continue on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Wednesday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by my friends over at Intercap Lending. We've been telling you for a while about Intercap, and we really have been telling you for a long time about Intercap because Steve Carter is just this incredibly awesome, great guy who's our own personal loan officer. Well, They have a new product at Intercap, and we've already got one of our listeners to jump on it right now. Here's the deal. If you are thinking about building your dream home and you want to here's what I want to tell you about. There's a new incredible construction loan program from the friends at Intercap they've rolled out. Here's how it works. And we're actually building a house right now, so this has been really interesting. You can defer all interest payments during the construction phase. Yeah, no, you heard that right. No payments until the home is ready. They offer flexible underwriting to cater to your unique financial situation, making it easier for you to get approved. And seeking approval, you'll love this. The quick decision-making process means that on average, you'll get approved in 3 to 4 weeks. It's practically unheard of in the industry. The offer loans are up to $3 million, giving you the flexibility to build your house of dreams without financial constraints. So if you're ready to turn your dream home into reality, check out Intercap Lending's new construction loan. As always, give Steve Carter Intercap Lending a call. His 385-800-8528, or email me at dlock09@gmail.com, and I'll get you connected right to Steve. Don't miss out. Fantastic opportunity to build your future with confidence and ease. Defer all interest payments during the construction phase. It's kind of an incredible deal, and Intercap Lending is behind it right now. So jump on with Intercap Lending. Email me at dlock@gmail.com, and I'll get you hooked up immediately with our friend, Steve Carter. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. I was talking last night about my obsession with various concerts and trying to pull the trigger and using Game Time. I've kind of gotten addicted to it. So you can save up to 60% on buying last-minute sports, concerts, comedy, and theater deals with Game Time. Game Time has it all. They have the flash deals, the zone deals, flash deals, in-app exclusive deals, all-in pricing. Toggle that feature over and know immediately. I was trying to do the George Strait, Chris Stapleton, little big town concert, end up at another party, so I didn't make that one. Seat views, get the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So the Game Time, if you're looking to go to a concert or a game, this Major League Baseball game this summer, you're heading into town for something, and you're in a town, there's a game, go to the Game Time app, see if you can get the last-minute deals. Make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your purchase. That's $20 off your purchase with LOCKEDONNBA. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. We're also on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, thumbs up if you want Kawhi Leonard. All right, let's be honest for a second. If the Jazz want Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers are going to want a ton. I'm going to guess for Kawhi Leonard, a top 14 player in the NBA, you're giving up probably 3 to 4 first-round picks, as well as one of our young players, maybe 2. There are rumors that the Clippers are trying to trade Zubac as well. So you try to start putting this deal together. And here was an initial try I had that fails, and I can't quite figure out what to do to fix it. So let's start with the first deal that actually works, okay? The first deal that actually works is John Collins and Colin Sexton for Kawhi Leonard. Okay, that obviously doesn't get a deal done for the 10th best player in the NBA. And even 4 first-round picks might not get that done. You're trying, the Clippers are going into full rebuild, into their new building. They're going to use your picks, but they need some pieces. So the next angle is they have to get off Russell Westbrook. So you include Taylor Hendricks and Russell Westbrook, and suddenly the deal falls apart because I don't actually know why. It has to do with the Clippers are close to the second apron with Paul George still on their books. So it gets a little complicated. And the Clippers are a luxury tax threshold team. And so if you aggregate their salaries, they cannot be plus 125. But if you add Taylor Hendricks and you add Russell Westbrook, we're actually sending them $50 million and taking in 53. So I would have thought that would have worked. So I'm not entirely sure why that didn't work, but it didn't. So that would be kind of the first, at least according to ESPN's It didn't work. I actually think after Paul George signs, there'll be some renewed flexibility in doing a deal of this nature. Now, Kawhi Leonard, I think they're actually a first apron team right now. Kawhi Leonard, because of when he signed his contract, might have some restrictions to how you're able to trade for him. That's another one to keep an eye on here in a little bit. But this is conceptually, let's just kind of stay with it conceptually, rather than being, completely like we're trading this player and that player. Would you be willing as a Jazz fan to trade something in the line of John Collins, Colin Sexton to get the numbers? So you lose Colin, who's a really good player, for Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook, who you waive for a second time, or you keep him. And you're giving up some combination of Taylor Hendricks, Keontae George. They have James Harden. I don't know what, I don't actually, at this point, they wouldn't care what they have because they're just building their roster out. And we're giving up probably of our remaining picks. We have 2 picks next year, a Cleveland and Minnesota. We have hard for us to trade our picks because of the protections. We have the Cleveland 2027, the Laker 2027, the Minnesota 2027, our 2028, our 2029, our 2030, Cleveland's 2029, and Minnesota's. So we have a collection, and we have the pick swaps. But we right now have a collection of 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks that aren't ours. And then if we stay in, we would now be giving up our pick likely to Oklahoma City because we would not be top 10 protected in this next draft. So you're moving that pick, then you suddenly have the ability to trade your 2027, our 2029, our 2030. And they would probably want our 2029 unprotected as Kawhi's 35 years old. And they would probably want a Cleveland 2029, and a Minnesota 2027. How far are you willing to go? It's big game hunting. Kawhi Leonard's big game. Clippers are in no man's land. For all the talk of where the Jazz going to go, this would be the direction of where the Jazz go. They go and get Kawhi Leonard. Not crazy. I'm certain the Clippers are listening. They're really in a box right now. Losing Paul George, somewhat disastrous for him. So does this count? If you're a Utah Jazz fan, would you want to do a Kawhi Leonard deal? And how good are the Jazz if they come out of it with Kawhi Leonard, Lauri Markkanen, and we got to piece the rest of it together, right? Like let's say you just traded John Collins, Colin Sexton, Taylor Hendricks. I'm only making up just Taylor Hendricks is our highest thought after prospect. He was a 9th pick of the draft, right? It could be anybody. I'm just, throwing that out there. So I'm not suggesting it. I'm just throwing it out there for the discussion. So then what are you? Your Keontae George, your Kawhi Leonard and Lauri Markkanen. You need a 2. I'm assuming Lowry's now playing your 4. Walker's playing your 5. Do we have enough? Jordan Clarkson is your starting 2. So it's suddenly Keontae George, Jordan Clarkson, Kawhi Leonard, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, with Cody Williams coming off the bench, if he's ready. Hard to know. Who am I forgetting? We have Bryce Sensabaugh. We've traded in this scenario John Collins. I'm not forgetting anyone, I don't think. Drew Eubanks. So, where do you go? All right. Speaking of big game hunting, does Brandon Ingram count as big game hunting? Brandon Ingram, who's got 1 year left at $36 million. He's got some cards on this one. You better make sure he's going to be able to sign. All indications are New Orleans is willing to make that move. I would guess after trading for DeJounte Murray that you might have New Orleans being willing to trade the services of CJ McCollum. Are either of those big game hunting. Does Brandon Ingram and Lauri Markkanen get you somewhere you want to be? According to the Ringer, if you just kind of think of our top 20, top 10, top 20, top 50, Lauri Markkanen is ranked 28th in the NBA, so Brandon Ingram is ranked 35th. CJ McCollum, I would guess, is below 50 at this point. I did not think he had the greatest year last year. CJ McCollum is, wow, they have CJ McCollum ranked below Fred VanVleet. Yep, 68th. Not sure I'm paying $33 million for the 68th best player in the NBA. Brandon Ingram gets you two top 30, 40 players in the NBA. He's a funky player. He has great numbers. It always feels like something else is there. He's pretty good late in games, though New Orleans was awful late in games last year. He's 6'8", 190. He's only 26. Like, you put Lauri Markkanen and Brandon Ingram together on the same team, and you actually have two pieces that are in the same age game, and you have these two pieces for a while that are in their prime, getting better, 127, 126, and maybe you have two pieces that then as you continue to build with all these young pieces underneath them, as some of them prosper, you go, or you can move one of those two pieces for future players. Brandon Ingram's situation is that he is in the final year of a deal looking for a probably close to max extension, which makes people uncomfortable, including the Pelicans. Rightfully so. The Pelicans probably do not want to be paying Brandon Ingram on a multi-year deal at that level. So, sorry, something just happened on my computer, which probably wasn't good. What are you willing to do there? Do you think the big game hunting is Brandon Ingram? I thought somebody said this well about the Jazz. What the Jazz probably can't do again is play a 50-game season. And that's what's driving a little bit of the Lauri Markkanen talk right now. Is that you cannot, the Jazz probably can't play another 50-game season and then yank it back. But you add Kawhi Leonard, you're not playing a 50-game season. You're probably one of the top 6 teams in the Western Conference. You add Kawhi Leonard to the Utah Jazz, you might be the 5th best team in the Western Conference. You add Brandon Ingram to the Utah Jazz, a little harder to feel. What else can you do? Some big game hunting still possibly to be done by the Utah Jazz. Lauri Markkanen and Brandon Ingram do hold some of these cards, by the way. We'll discuss that as we continue next on Locked on Jazz. Thanks very much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. Locked on NBA is here for you every single day. 30 minutes of all your NBA coverage, all the biggest news, and there for you Monday through Friday, your team every day. There are projected to be 15 teams with cap room next year. 15 different teams with cap room next year. If Lauri Markkanen gets traded, they cannot renegotiate and extend him the way the Utah Jazz can. And then the question, if Lauri Markkanen just does an extension without the renegotiation, I think he probably doesn't want that because with 15 teams with cap room, he can go get more money next year. Which suddenly means that anyone who's trading for Lauri Markkanen is in all likelihood dealing with Lauri Markkanen as an unrestricted free agent 1 year after trading for him. And if that's the case, you better know that Lauri Markkanen is interested in playing for you. Now, the places that are being talked about, seemingly San Antonio, possibly Oklahoma City, possibly Golden State, possibly LA, one of the LA, seem like places where Lauri Markkanen would seemingly be fine to play. And they should be able to have the money to re-sign him and all of those kind of things. So that may turn out to just be absolutely fine. But Lauri still holds some of the cards here. Lauri may really want an extension. Now, remember, the Jazz cannot sign Lauri again until August because that's when he finally did his deal leaving Chicago to get to Cleveland, and not until that deal rolls over do you have the opportunity to do this extension with Lauri. But one of the wild cards, even in the Brandon Ingram conversation, is the fact that you have probably next year as many as 15 teams with cap room. It also makes Cleveland getting the Donovan Mitchell extension done great, but really nerve-wracking because a bunch of teams could then trade for Donovan Mitchell. Maybe the LA Clippers after they trade us Kawhi Leonard. Just a thought. So one of the, as we watch this all take place, a little bit of my point of the show is today is that, there's a lot of talk about Lauri. And there's a lot of talk about what are the Jazz going to do. And there does seem to be a fairly legitimate discussion that, do the Jazz really want to get caught in the same game they had the last 2 years where they're actually Will Hardy's such a good coach and the team plays hard enough and they keep getting better as the year goes on. And we were terrible at times last year and still fought through it and got through it and do all these things. And then we find a way to get ourselves into a position in which then we pull ripcord and lose, 19 of the last 23. Probably not going to want to do that again. So the feeling there is you kind of have to go one way or the other. Who knows? But maybe it's still big game hunting. All right, the other thing, by the way, in all these deals that are getting done in the NBA right now that are worth mentioning, there's little sneaky money deals going on. So, and this is actually something that's important for the Jazz. Oklahoma City's done this as well as anyone. So, Oklahoma City has signed Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, two players that probably don't matter a lot in a lot of people's mind, and even Isaiah Hartenstein, to these fairly significant contracts. So Aaron Wiggins, who's like their ninth guy, just got an 8 and 9 and 10, 4-year deal with averaging about $9 million. And Isaiah Joe got a 4-year deal averaging about 11 or 12 million. And then Hartenstein got a $30 million deal. Well, there's two things that Oklahoma City done brilliantly. One is that when Shea has his next big money deal, and when Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams are both up on their next big money deal, most of these deals will be done. So it's really smart. The final one is that when you have all these draft assets, like Oklahoma City, like Utah, like San Antonio, and you want to go make an upgrade for a player, you have to have salaries to trade to go get that player. So to some extent, what Oklahoma City has done has signed $50 million of viable NBA players who are also $50 million of trade chips. Plus the Lou Dort, $17 million. It's probably a trade chip. But assuming that they never want to trade Shea, or that they don't want to trade Chet, or they don't want to trade Jalen Williams. But I want Jalen Williams, please. Was that the cutest thing ever that Jalen Williams was there for Cody Williams' press conference yesterday? So great. But because they don't have those, they now have $50 million to go aggregate and move to go get whatever their next piece is and make the next trade. It's kind of interesting. Do you think there's any chance that Oklahoma City will trade us Jalen Williams? I'll take Jalen Williams. I think Jalen Williams is the next great star in this league. He's the next Shea Jalen Brunson star in this league, which is really daunting because if it's not him, it's Chet Holmgren. They really have him. They have him lined up and ready to come. Is there a chance you could get a deal with them for something? I don't know. I like Jalen Williams. But keep an eye on those sneaky money deals. There's some value to me at this point for the Jazz when you look at the free agents that are left, be it an Isaac Okoro, who I liked actually from the very beginning, be it a Gordon Hayward, be it somebody that you might be interested in signing them for a deal at a decent money number so that you can go trade them at a later time. A Buddy Hield probably has been because you're not trading the player, you're trading the salary to go get the player you want. It's in theory, the Jazz kind of have this right now. It just hasn't come to fruition yet with John at 26 and Colin at 19 and Jordan at 14. They have these pieces that you should be able to aggregate and put together. It just hasn't happened yet. And you need to keep having those. That is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks very much. Who knows what happens by tomorrow, but we'll be here for you, bringing you your team every day. We now send you on YouTube to our, what's your thoughts? Thumbs up or thumbs? What's your guys' thoughts? Give me your thoughts on all those possibilities. We now send you your first ever 24/7 national sports channel, Locked On Sports Today. It's on YouTube. If you're on audio, check out the Big 6 and 60, the new show we're launching on Locked On.